The universe has a heartbeat, not a metaphor, not a poet's daydream, a literal, measurable, documented pulse, running at every scale from the smallest thing physics can even define, all the way up to the web of superclusters a billion light years across. And the wild part? Quantum mechanics is what keeps that heartbeat going. Hidden rhythms, synced oscillations, quantum locks that hold matter together, keep birds from getting lost, make sunlight edible for plants, and may even be what makes you conscious right now. Nobody talks about this stuff in plain language. Almost everyone glosses over the sheer strangeness of how synchronized the universe actually is at the quantum level. Virtual particles, vacuum energy, supersolids spinning in lockstep, qubits snapping into rhythm via photons born from nothing. The Casimir effect dragging two metal plates together just because empty space is vibrating. This is not science fiction. Every single thing in this script is documented, peer-reviewed, and frankly, a little terrifying if you sit with it long enough. So let's sit with it. If you value documented physics like this, the stuff that lives deep in the journals rather than the headlines, subscribe right now. It is the best way to support this work. And drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We read every single one. Now, the sources backing this script: the primary research journal, Nature Physics, October 2025, DOI 10.1038/S415 67-025-03065-7, which documented supersolid quantum synchronization experiments at Innsbruck University, and the journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, December 2025, DOI 10.3389/FNHum.20 25.16765E85 by physicist Joachim Kepler at the Daiwis Research Institute, showing that the brain's cortical microcolumns couple to the zero-point field of the quantum vacuum. These are not pop science blogs. These are the receipts. Now back to the information. Start with something so small you cannot see it. Not atoms. Smaller. The Planck length, 1.6 times 10 to the negative 35 meters. That is roughly 100 million billion times smaller than a proton. At that scale, the smooth, flat, quiet fabric of space that you picture in your head does not exist. In 1955, theoretical physicist John Wheeler sat down and did the math, combining quantum mechanics with general relativity at those scales. And what he got was not calmness. He got foam, space-time foam, a boiling, churning, bubbling mess where space and time themselves are not steady structures but probabilistic fluctuations, tiny wormholes opening and collapsing, virtual particles winking in and out of reality, the very geometry of space vibrating. Wheeler described the uncertainty principle as implying that over sufficiently small distances, the very geometry of space-time fluctuates. Those are his words, published in the Annals of Physics in 1957, and they have never been disproven. Here is what that means in practical terms. You're not sitting on a solid, stable foundation of empty space. The vacuum itself, what you call nothingness, is not nothing. It is a seething ocean of zero-point energy, what physicists call the zero-point field, or ZPF, the electromagnetic quantum vacuum. In quantum field theory, every single point in space is treated as a quantum harmonic oscillator, a tiny spring that cannot ever fully stop bouncing, even at absolute zero temperature. Every single one of them, in the whole universe, oscillating together. Not in sync in the obvious sense. The oscillations at each point are random, but structured by the same quantum rules everywhere, linked by the electromagnetic field that permeates all of space. Max Planck found the first evidence of this in 1912 when solving the blackbody radiation problem. He discovered what he called Nullpunktsenergie, zero-point energy, a residual energy that remained even when a system was cooled to its absolute minimum. Albert Einstein and Otto Stern followed in 1913, calculated the zero-point energy of field modes at twice Planck's value, accidentally discovering what became the zero-point field, though neither man initially realized what they had found. Walter Nernst, in 1916, was the first to explicitly discuss the possibility that the vacuum itself carries this energy, making him, as historians of physics now call him, the grandfather of the quantum vacuum. Cold, still, buzzing anyway. The vacuum is the first quantum rhythm, and it has teeth. In 1948, Dutch physicist Hendrik Casimir was sitting in Copenhagen doing calculations with Niels Bohr when he realized something strange. If the vacuum is full of zero-point fluctuations, and you place two uncharged, perfectly smooth metal plates extremely close together in a vacuum, the fluctuations on the outside of the plates would outnumber the fluctuations squeezed into the tiny gap between them, because the gap restricts which wavelengths of vacuum fluctuation can fit inside. That imbalance creates a net inward pressure. The vacuum pushes the plates together, not because of any charge, not because of any magnetism, because the rhythm of nothingness is different on two sides of a gap. Casimir predicted it in 1948. Steve Lamoureux at the University of Washington measured it experimentally in 1997 with a precision of 5%. By 2024, researchers using nanoscale plates had refined those measurements to unprecedented accuracy, confirming theoretical predictions about how zero-point energy interacts with matter and geometry. The Casimir effect is not a theory anymore. It is a measurement. It is the universe's heartbeat pressing two pieces of metal together from a distance of hundreds of nanometers. Now scale up slightly. Individual quantum particles, electrons, qubits, oscillators. The question physicists started asking in the 21st century was whether these things could synchronize the way classical objects can. Pendulum clocks on a table, left long enough, fall into phase with each other. Christian Huygens documented that in 1665, calling it the sympathy of pendulums. Fireflies in a field flash in unison. Pacemaker cells in your heart fire together in lockstep. All of this is classical synchronization. Two or more systems locking their rhythms through physical interaction. But in the quantum world, the rules are different. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle means you cannot know a quantum system's exact position and momentum simultaneously. That makes the whole idea of a trajectory, the path a classical pendulum follows, meaningless at the quantum scale. So quantum synchronization should be impossible, or at least radically different. And it is radically different. But it is not impossible. In August 2025, researchers published a bombshell in Nature Communications. A team, using a chain of superconducting transmon qubits, the building blocks of quantum computers, showed that applying Gaussian white noise to a single site in the chain caused synchronized oscillations to cascade through the entire chain. The two qubits at opposite ends of the chain fell into rhythm. And here's the part that should make you stop and reread the sentence. Those two synchronized end qubits were entangled. They shared quantum correlations belonging to a class called maximally entangled mixed states whose entanglement cannot be increased by any global operation. Noise, random fluctuation, drove quantum systems into not just synchronization but entanglement. The paper was published in Nature Communications on September 26, 2025. The team included researchers supported by the National Natural Science Foundation of China. Grant numbers 119-34010 and 122051337. Sync, entangle, hold. That three-step sequence is how the universe runs. Meanwhile, separately, Maxwell Eifer and Sebastian Defner at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, along with Juzar Thingna at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, published a paper in Physical Review Letters asking a simpler but deeper question. What does it actually cost to synchronize quantum systems, and how fast can it happen? Their answer, released in August 2024, was startling. Quantum oscillators can synchronize in scenarios where classical synchronization is physically impossible. The quantum speed limit, the theoretical maximum rate of change for any quantum state, determines the minimum time needed to sync, and they found that quantum systems sync fastest when the interaction between them outweighs the noise from the environment. The math also showed that synchronization comes at an energetic cost. You cannot get quantum lockstep for free. But the payoff is coordination that has no classical equivalent. Then came October 2025. The University of Innsbruck, in partnership with the Pitajewski BEC Center at the University of Trento, published a paper in Nature Physics, DOI 10.1038/S 41567-0 25-0306 5-7. Francesca Furlano led the experimental team. Elena Poli handled the theoretical modeling. Andrea Litvinov conducted the experiments. The subject was a supersolid, one of the strangest states of matter ever made. A supersolid is simultaneously rigid like a crystal and frictionless like a superfluid. It has crystalline order and can flow without losing energy. Scientists achieved it using ultra-cold dysprosium atoms cooled to billionths of a degree above absolute zero, temperatures colder than deep space. They rotated the supersolid using a technique called magnetostirring, spinning it with a carefully controlled magnetic field. What happened next was, in Litvinov's own words, thrilling. The quantum droplets of the supersolid, arranged in crystalline periodic order, each began precessing, wobbling like gyroscopes, following the external field. They all moved collectively. Then, quantum vortices formed in the superfluid between the droplets. The moment the vortices appeared, the precession and revolution of the entire structure locked into synchrony with the external magnetic field. The whole supersolid crystal snapped into rhythm, one unified beat, a material made of quantum matter finding its own pulse. Rhythm found, lock achieved, held. This matters beyond being a beautiful laboratory result. Quantum synchronization has direct implications for quantum sensing, quantum communication, and quantum networks. A paper published in Scientific Reports on March 4, 2025, from the Deutsche Telekom Chair of Communication Networks at Technische Universität Dresden by Swaraj Shekarnanda and colleagues, laid out how quantum network synchronization could resolve timing errors in the next generation of 6G telecommunications infrastructure. Current precision time protocol systems are unreliable because of jitter and datagram losses. Quantum synchronization, using entangled photons and coherent field modes to lock timing across nodes, could reduce timing errors from hundreds of microseconds to tens of nanoseconds, a factor of 10,000 improvement. The universe figured out entanglement-based synchronization billions of years ago. We are just now building the technology to copy it. Now pull back from the lab, into the wild, into life itself. Quantum biology is the field asking the question nobody expected to be real. Are living systems actually using quantum mechanics to function? Not just obeying quantum laws as everything must, but actively exploiting quantum phenomena, coherence, tunneling, entanglement, for biological advantage? The answer, increasingly, appears to be yes. 3 cases stand above the rest: photosynthesis, navigation, enzyme catalysis. Start with leaves. In photosynthesis, light hits a chlorophyll molecule in the antenna complex of a plant or bacterium. The energy from that photon needs to travel to the reaction center, where it gets converted into chemical energy. The problem is, the antenna complex is not a simple wire. It is a protein scaffold holding dozens of light-absorbing pigment molecules, all slightly different, all in a disordered arrangement. In classical physics, energy would random walk its way through, losing efficiency at each step. In practice, photosynthesis runs at efficiencies approaching 100% at the molecular level. Ronghang Chen from the Beijing Computational Science Research Center, Jing Dong from the Institute of Physics at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Wen Yang, also from Beijing, and Guilu Long from Tsinghua University, published a comprehensive review in November 2025 showing how quantum coherence is the mechanism behind this extraordinary efficiency. The energy does not random walk. It exists as a quantum superposition across multiple pathways simultaneously, the quantum equivalent of trying every route at once and arriving by the fastest one. The protein environment is not an obstacle to this. The protein environment appears to be tuned to preserve the coherence long enough for the energy to reach the reaction center. Nature evolved a quantum rhythm. It evolved a beat that keeps the energy moving precisely where it needs to go. But let us be honest about the debate. It is real. A major review published in Science, PMC article 7124948, by Graham Flemings and other leading groups, examined the long-lived oscillations in 2-dimensional electronic spectra of the Fenner-Matthews-Olsen complex, the most studied photosynthetic complex in quantum biology. Their conclusion was sharp. The long-lived oscillations previously celebrated as evidence of quantum coherence in energy transfer are not, in fact, from interexciton coherence. Instead, they originate from vibrational modes on the electronic ground state, essentially molecular rattling that has nothing to do with the energy transfer process. They found no low-frequency quantum beats with dephasing times beyond 60 femtoseconds at biologically relevant temperatures. The debate is live. The field is not settled. What is settled? Photosynthesis operates near theoretical quantum efficiency limits, and quantum effects play a role. How central those effects are, and exactly which effects, is still being resolved. Cold, complicated, real. Next, birds. European robins migrate from Scandinavia to sub-Saharan Africa every autumn and back every spring. Thousands of kilometers, navigating with precision that would embarrass most GPS systems. They use the Earth's magnetic field as a compass. In 1978, Klaus Schulten first proposed the theoretical framework, the radical pair mechanism. Light hits cryptochrome proteins in the bird's retina. An electron transfers from a donor molecule to an acceptor molecule, creating what physicists call a radical pair. 2 molecules, each with an unpaired electron, quantum entangled with each other by their shared spin state. The Earth's magnetic field is so weak that it can barely move anything. It is about 50 microteslas at Earth's surface, far too weak to affect classical chemistry. But the entangled electron spins in the radical pair are sensitive enough to respond. The singlet and triplet spin states of the pair interconvert at a rate affected by the orientation of the magnetic field relative to the bird's head. Different orientations produce different chemical products. Different chemical products produce different signals in the retina. The bird reads the magnetic field as a visual pattern, essentially seeing direction overlaid on its normal vision. The Journal of the Royal Society Interface published a landmark overview of this mechanism, confirming it is well established in both experimental and theoretical investigation. Multiple lines of evidence from behavioral experiments support it. The avian compass is light-dependent as the radical pair mechanism predicts. It is an inclination compass as the mechanism predicts, and applying oscillatory radiofrequency magnetic fields at the right frequency disrupts navigation as the mechanism predicts. 4 decades of work, quantum entanglement, in a bird's eye, finding north. Now the third case, enzymes. Every time a chemical reaction happens inside you, digestion, cellular respiration, DNA repair, an enzyme is running the show. Enzymes are proteins that speed up reactions by lowering the energy barrier needed for the reaction to proceed. Classical models explain part of this speedup. Quantum tunneling explains the rest. Tunneling is the quantum phenomenon where a particle passes through an energy barrier that classical physics says is impenetrable, essentially walking through a wall. In enzyme catalysis, hydrogen atoms tunnel through barriers in hydrogen transfer reactions. This is not hypothetical. Kinetic isotope effect measurements, comparing the rates of reactions with regular hydrogen versus deuterium, which is twice as heavy, reveal that the transfer rates differ far more than classical models predict. The excess speed comes from tunneling, the quantum world reaching into biochemistry, leaking through barriers at speeds classical chemistry says are impossible. And it is not just one enzyme. Multiple enzymatic systems studied in the 21st century, including alcohol dehydrogenase studied at the University of Manchester, show clear signatures of quantum tunneling as a functional part of their mechanism. Subscribe now if this is the kind of deep, documented physics you want more of. Drop your city below. We're always curious where this is landing. This is where we are, halfway through. The vacuum itself vibrates. Quantum systems synchronize and entangle. Life has figured out how to harness those rhythms for photosynthesis, navigation, and catalysis. But the deepest rhythm of all might be the one happening inside your skull right now. In December 2025, physicist Joachim Kepler at the DIWIS Research Institute. Kepler holds a PhD in physics from Friedrich Alexander University of Erlangen, specializing in quantum field theory, published a paper in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, DOI 10.33889/funhum.2025.1676, 585, titled Macroscopic Quantum Effects in the Brain, New Insights into the Fundamental Principle Underlying Conscious Processes. His argument, backed by quantitative model calculations, was this. The brain's cortical microcolumns, the basic functional units of the cortex, each made of roughly 100 neurons bathed in a pool of glutamate, the brain's most abundant neurotransmitter, coupled directly to the zero-point field. The electromagnetic zero-point field, the quantum vacuum, the boiling sea of nothingness that fills all of space. Specific frequencies, specific modes of the zero-point field resonate with glutamate molecules inside those microcolumns. That resonant coupling creates coherence domains, regions where large numbers of molecules vibrate in unison, in lockstep, protected by energy gaps that stabilize the coherence even in the warm, wet, noisy biological environment. Kepler argues this coupling is the mechanism underlying self-organized criticality in brain function, and that conscious states arise when the brain is resonating with the quantum vacuum. This connects to separate experimental work by Kevin Kerskens and David Lopez Perez, published in Journal of Physics Communications in 2022, which used an MRI technique sensitive to quantum coherence to detect signals in the human brain that correlated with the cardiac cycle, what the researchers called heartbeat-evoked potentials, arising from a zero-quantum coherence signal. Critically, those signals disappeared when subjects fell asleep or were anesthetized. The signals tracked with conscious state. W.S. Warren at Duke University published a critique in 2023 arguing the signals could be explained by classical effects, the pulsation of blood altering magnetic susceptibility fields in brain tissue, not quantum entanglement. Kerskens and Perez responded with a physical analysis. Classical distant dipolar fields scale with the square of magnetization, a nonlinear relationship, while their measured signal scaled linearly, which is the quantum coherence signature. The debate is ongoing. The data is real. The question of what it means is not settled, but the possibility that your brain is actively coupled to the quantum heartbeat of the vacuum, that is not fringe. That is published physics in peer-reviewed journals in 2025. Zoom out again, way out, to cosmological scales. The universe expanded from a hot, dense point 13.8 billion years ago. In the first tiny fractions of a second, during the period called inflation, quantum fluctuations in the primordial density field were stretched to cosmic scales. Those fluctuations seeded the formation of all large-scale structure. Galaxies, galaxy clusters, the cosmic web. Every galaxy you have ever seen in a Hubble image traces its origin to a quantum oscillation that happened before the first proton existed. The universe's largest structures are quantum rhythms, fossilized at cosmic scale. The temperature fluctuations in the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, measured by the Planck satellite between 2009 and 2013, match the predicted spectrum of primordial quantum fluctuations with extraordinary precision. The power spectrum of the CMB temperature map is, at its core, a record of quantum oscillations from 13.8 billion years ago, imprinted on the oldest light in the universe. And then there is the space-time foam, John Wheeler's quantum foam. In July 2025, physicist Shisheng Shui submitted a paper to arXiv, reference 2507.15881, proposing a model where Wheeler's spacetime wormholes at the Planck length undergo quantum nucleation, oscillation, and annihilation as collective events. Joe named the collective excitations foamins, a field of foam-generated quantum particles that interact with matter fields at large scales. Using the Wilson renormalization group approach, he showed the Fomin field theory connects ultraviolet physics at the Planck scale to infrared physics at cosmological scales. The Fomin field may be the mechanism underlying the cosmological constant, dark energy itself, the mysterious force accelerating the universe's expansion. Dark energy may be the collective quantum rhythm of space-time foam, the heartbeat of the vacuum propagating from the Planck scale all the way up to the cosmic horizon. This is not confirmed. It is a theoretical model submitted July 18, 2025, but it is a calculation that closes a loop. The same quantum vacuum that makes the Casimir effect real, that synchronizes qubits, that may pulse inside your cortex, may also be what is driving the universe apart. Let us go back to something more concrete. The Casimir effect, specifically the dynamical version. In August 2023, updated June 2024, Haruki Midarai and Yoshihiko Hasegawa at the University of Tokyo published a paper, Archive 2308.15788, on quantum synchronization via the dynamical Casimir effect. The dynamical Casimir effect is what happens when you move the boundaries of a cavity, two mirrors for example, at relativistic speeds. The vacuum fluctuations caught between the mirrors respond to the changing boundary conditions by producing real photons out of nothing. Genuinely, literally, from nothing. The moving mirror accelerates and the vacuum's zero-point oscillations convert into real, detectable photons. This was first predicted by physicist Gerald Moore in 1970, confirmed experimentally in 2011 at Chalmers University in Gothenburg, Sweden, by Christopher Wilson and colleagues using a superconducting quantum circuit as the equivalent of a moving mirror. Midarai and Hasegawa showed that in a system of two superconducting qubits coupled to a resonator terminated by a squid, a superconducting quantum interference device, the dynamical Casimir effect generates photons that synchronize the qubits. The vacuum's rhythm becomes the synchronizing agent. Empty space, vibrating, makes light from nothing, and that light locks two quantum systems into lockstep. Creation from nothing, rhythm from vacuum, synchrony from noise. These are not metaphors. These are the operating principles of reality at its smallest scales. The question physicists are now asking is whether they also operate at biological and neurological scales. The answer appears to be yes, in some systems, under some conditions, at some level, though exactly how far up the scale this extends remains an open and fiercely debated question. What is beyond debate is the architecture. The quantum world is not a collection of isolated events happening at random. It is a structured system of oscillations and correlations, persisting across scales, linking phenomena that appear completely separate at the macroscopic level. Consider what has been established. Photon created in a vacuum fluctuation near the European XFL facility, the world's largest X-ray laser in Hamburg, where the Helmholtz International Beamline for Extreme Fields, HIBEF, consortium led by the Helmholtz Zentrum Dresden-Rossendorf has been designing experiments since 2023 to detect vacuum birefringence, the rotation of X-ray polarization by manipulated vacuum fluctuations. If the experiments scheduled for the XFEL's Haiti experimental station succeed, they will confirm once more that the quantum vacuum responds to electromagnetic fields in ways that reveal its hidden structure, and may expose entirely new physics, including axions, ultralight particles predicted by some extensions of the Standard Model. Professors Ralph Schutzhold of the HDDR described the experiment. An ultra-powerful laser fires intense flashes into an evacuated chamber, manipulating vacuum fluctuations, so they change the polarization of an X-ray beam, the vacuum itself being bent and measured. Its rhythm made visible. Rhythm visible, structure confirmed. Hold on this. None of what has been described requires mysticism. It does not require belief. It requires reading the papers. The evidence trail goes like this. 1912, Planck, zero-point energy and blackbody radiation. 1916, Nernst, the quantum vacuum as a field. 1948, Casimir, the pressure of vacuum fluctuations measured as an attractive force. 1955, Wheeler, space-time foam. 1970, Moore, dynamical Casimir effect predicted. 1978, Schulten, radical pair. Mechanism and bird navigation. 2007, Fleming's group, quantum coherence in the FMO complex reported. 2011, Wilson at Chalmers, dynamical Casimir effect confirmed experimentally. 2022, Kerskens and Perez, zero quantum coherence signal in human brain correlated with heartbeat. 2024, Afer and Defner, quantum sync faster than classical limits. 2025, September, noise-driven qubit synchronization producing entanglement, Nature Communications. 2025, October, supersolids snapping into rhythm, Nature Physics. 2025, December. Cortical microcolumns resonating with the quantum vacuum. Frontiers in human neuroscience. Each step documented, each step replicated or peer-reviewed. A chain of evidence spanning more than a century, converging on the same conclusion. The universe is not just ruled by quantum laws. It is rhythmically organized by them at every scale we know how to look. Now the deepest, strange part. Go back to synchronization. Classical synchronization, pendulums, fireflies, pacemaker cells, requires interaction through physical coupling. They touch, or they share a medium, or they emit signals that reach each other. Quantum synchronization can happen through entanglement, through shared vacuum fluctuations, through noise that paradoxically imposes order. The September 2025 paper in Nature Communications, the qubit chain experiment, showed that noise at one site propagated synchronization not just to neighboring qubits, but to the ends of the entire chain, entangling them in the process. The mechanism is not local. The synchronization passes through the system non-locally via quantum correlations. In a universe where the zero-point field fills all of space, and where quantum coherence can link systems across distance through entanglement, the question of what counts as a local rhythm and what counts as a non-local one gets complicated very fast. The Innsbruck supersolid experiment is the cleanest illustration of what quantum rhythm actually looks like when you can see it. Dysprosium atoms cooled to billionths of a degree above absolute zero Kelvin. Crystalline order, superfluidity, magnetostirring, a rotating magnetic field at controlled frequency. Quantum droplets, precessing, vortices forming, and then the snap. Precession and revolution locking into synchrony with the external field simultaneously across the entire crystal. Elena Pauly, who led the theory, said the whole structure fell into rhythm with the external magnetic field, like nature finding its own beat. That phrase, like nature finding its own beat, is not a metaphor. That is what quantum synchronization is. Systems of many particles with complex internal structures, searching the space of possible dynamics until they lock onto a shared phase. The universe finding its own beat again and again, from the Planck length to the cosmic web. What does this mean for you, sitting here? Here's a fact. Every atom in your body is a quantum oscillator. Every chemical bond is a quantum mechanical state. Every photon your eyes detect causes quantum state changes in retinal proteins. The enzymatic reactions in your mitochondria, producing the ATP that powers every thought you are currently having, involve quantum tunneling. The hemoglobin in your blood uses quantum mechanical processes to pick up and release oxygen at exactly the right moments. The DNA replication machinery exploits quantum effects in tautomeric states of nucleotide bases, quantum mechanical switching that affects the fidelity of genetic copying. You are not a classical machine that happens to be made of quantum stuff. You are a quantum system operating at biological scale, with classical behavior emerging from quantum foundations, the same way the smooth fabric of space-time emerges from the boiling quantum foam at the Planck scale below it. And the synchronization? Your heartbeat. Literally your heartbeat is the result of pacemaker cells in the sinoatrial node of your heart, firing in lockstep. Those cells synchronize through gap junctions and shared ion channel dynamics. The ion channels themselves open and close through quantum mechanical conformational changes in membrane proteins. Your heart is a biological quantum clock, ticking through coupled quantum systems, its rhythm felt in the blood pressure waves that pulse through your entire body 60 to 100 times per minute. The Kurskins and Perez brain experiment found a signal correlated with those heartbeat pulses, heartbeat-evoked potentials, arising from zero quantum coherence in brain tissue, disappearing when consciousness disappears. Whether that signal is quantum entanglement or classical blood vessel pulsation is still debated. What is not debated: your brain knows your heart is beating. It responds to every pulse. Whether it responds quantumly or classically, the body is synchronized at scales from the molecular to the whole organism. Here is the late reveal. In 2023, at the head experimental station of the European XFEL, researchers from the HIBEF consortium submitted detailed detection schemes for measuring quantum vacuum birefringence, the change in polarization of X-ray light caused by vacuum fluctuations being stressed by ultra-powerful laser pulses. Published in Physical Review D, Volume 108, page 076005, authored by N. Amadinias, T. E. Cowan, J. Grenzer, and Orar Schutzhold, among others. The first trials were scheduled for 2024 at the world's largest X-ray laser, the European XFEL in Hamburg. The goal? Make the rhythm of the vacuum visible. Bend the zero-point field with light and watch the X-rays rotate in response. If deviations from quantum electrodynamics are found, they could indicate axions, particles so light they have not been detected yet, potentially responsible for dark matter, potentially altering the background rhythm of the vacuum across cosmic scales. The same facility that probes the quantum heartbeat of the vacuum might, in detecting anomalies in that heartbeat, reveal the particle that fills the universe's dark matter scaffolding. The vacuum's rhythm, made visible, might expose the universe's missing mass. The supersolid's rhythm, made audible in data, revealed how quantum vortices lock matter into collective motion. The qubit chain's rhythm, imposed by noise, entangled the ends of a quantum wire. The bird's chemical rhythm, powered by quantum entanglement in its retina, guided it 4,000 kilometers without a map. The leaf's quantum rhythm, keeping coherence alive in warm, wet protein, converted sunlight into sugar with near-perfect efficiency. And somewhere in your cortex, if Kepler's model holds, microcolumns of neurons are oscillating in resonance with the electromagnetic zero-point field, with the hum of the universe itself. Everything oscillates. Everything syncs. The question was never whether the universe has a heartbeat. The question was always whether we had instruments sensitive enough to hear it. We do now. And the data says it has never stopped beating. The Casimir effect was not a lucky accident. The calculation Casimir did in 1948 was not something he stumbled into. He was sitting with Niels Bohr in Copenhagen, working through the van der Waals forces between molecules, when Bohr made a passing remark about zero-point energy. Casimir went home and 3 weeks later had the prediction. The attractive force between two perfectly smooth, uncharged metal plates in a vacuum, separated by a distance d, is proportional to the fourth power of 1 divided by d. As the plates get closer, the force grows dramatically. At a separation of 10 nanometers, 10 billionths of a meter, the Casimir pressure is roughly 1 atmosphere. The pressure of the air around you right now, reproduced by the vibration of empty space. In 2024, research groups using advanced nanotechnology measured the Casimir force with unprecedented precision at nanoscale separations, confirming quantum electrodynamics predictions, and opening the question of whether the Casimir effect could be exploited as a mechanical force in nanomachines, the vacuum's rhythm as an engine, the universe's heartbeat as a tool. The radical pair mechanism in European robins is not just elegant theory, it has been stress tested. In experiments published across multiple years exposing birds to oscillating radio frequency magnetic fields at specific frequencies disrupts their navigation. Not loud fields, the fields used are far weaker than the Earth's own field. They work not by overpowering the magnetic signal, but by resonating with the electron spin dynamics inside the cryptochrome radical pairs, interfering with the quantum oscillation that allows singlet-triplet interconversion. This is the diagnostic. A classical mechanism would not be sensitive to such weak resonant perturbations. Only a quantum mechanical process relying on spin-state oscillation would respond to them. The experiment has been replicated in European robins studied in Frankfurt, in garden warblers, in zebra finches. The quantum rhythm in the bird's retina is real. It is disrupted by exactly the frequencies quantum mechanics predicts should disrupt it. Nothing else explains the data. Enzyme catalysis. The Manchester group, led by Nigel Scruton and Judith Klinman, showed quantum tunneling of hydrogen atoms in alcohol dehydrogenase and related enzymes using kinetic isotope effects. The ratio of reaction rates for hydrogen versus deuterium transfer should be 7 at most if tunneling plays no role. The observed ratios are sometimes greater than 10, sometimes exceeding 20 for certain enzymes, a clear signature of tunneling. The quantum mechanical particle passes through the barrier rather than over it. The Boltzmann factor does not fully account for the temperature dependence. These are documented results published in journals, including Nature Chemistry and EJACS, the Journal of the American Chemical Society, over 2 decades. Quantum tunneling is not a marginal correction to enzyme function. It is integral to the catalytic mechanism in at minimum dozens of characterized enzymes, and likely in the majority of hydrogen transfer enzymatic reactions in biology. Every second, inside every cell of your body, quantum mechanics is threading hydrogen atoms through energy barriers. It has no classical right to cross. Tunneling happens. Coherence spreads. Synchrony locks in. The universe does not waste mechanisms it discovers. If quantum coherence gives a photosynthetic complex near perfect efficiency, evolution preserves it. If quantum tunneling makes an enzyme faster, selection keeps the enzyme. If quantum entanglement in cryptochrome proteins gives a bird a precision magnetic compass, 400 million years of bird evolution will conserve that molecular architecture. This is not teleology. This is natural selection operating on quantum mechanical chemistry. The universe's deep rhythms get incorporated into biology because they work, because they produce outcomes, efficient energy transfer, precise navigation, fast catalysis, that classical mechanisms cannot match. Biology is quantum mechanics running at room temperature. And it has been doing so for at least 3 billion years. The final scale is the biggest, the whole thing. 13.8 billion years ago, in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, during the inflationary epoch, quantum fluctuations in the density of the primordial universe were inflated from sub-Planck scales to cosmological scales. These fluctuations, tiny oscillations in quantum fields, became the seeds of everything. The overdense regions became galaxy clusters. The underdense regions became cosmic voids. The Baryon Oscillation Spectroscopic Survey, part of the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, has mapped the positions of more than 1 million galaxies and found, imprinted in their large-scale distribution, the signature of baryon acoustic oscillations, sound waves from the early universe that propagated through the hot plasma of the first 380,000 years, froze when the universe cooled enough for neutral hydrogen to form, and left a characteristic scale of about 500 million light-years in the correlation function of galaxy positions. The largest rhythm ever measured, sound waves from the primordial universe, a beat set by quantum fluctuations before the first stars existed, still visible today in the three-dimensional map of galaxies, still holding its frequency across 13 billion years. The universe is not silent. It has never been silent. From the Planck length to the cosmic web, it vibrates. At the Planck scale, space-time itself foams and fluctuates. At the scale of the quantum vacuum, zero-point oscillations fill every cubic centimeter of space with a pressure that can move metal plates. At the scale of qubits in a superconducting chip, noise drives synchronization that produces entanglement. At the scale of a supersolid made of dysprosium atoms, a magnetic field's rotation snaps an entire crystal into collective rhythm. At the scale of a robin's retina, entangled electrons read the direction of magnetic north from the oscillation of their spin states. At the scale of a leaf, quantum coherence keeps energy on the fastest path to the reaction center. At the scale of an enzyme, hydrogen tunnels through barriers with a frequency that no classical clock can match. At the scale of a human brain, if Kepler's 2025 model is correct, the cortex couples to the electromagnetic zero-point field and generates consciousness from the quantum vacuum's hum. And at the scale of the observable universe, the galaxy map carries the acoustic oscillation of the primordial plasma like a fossil, a record of the universe's first heartbeat, still readable today by any telescope pointed at the right patch of sky. None of this is mysticism. Every claim above is backed by peer-reviewed physics. Casimir force, measured to 5% precision by Lamoureux in 1997, refined to unprecedented nanoscale accuracy in 2024. Wheeler's quantum foam, proposed 1955, constrained but not disproven by NASA, Chandra, and Fermi observations, finding space-time smooth to distances 1,000 times smaller than a proton's nucleus. Quantum synchronization in supersolids, published Nature Physics, October 2025. Noise-driven entanglement in qubit chains, published Nature Communications, September 2025. Quantum tunneling in bird navigation, established across multiple replicated experiments in Frankfurt, studied across multiple species. Quantum tunneling in enzymes, kinetic isotope effects measured in dozens of enzymatic systems across 2 decades. Brain vacuum coupling, theoretical model, Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, December 2025. Baryon acoustic oscillations, measured by BOSS survey with thousands of galaxies, constraining cosmological parameters to sub% precision. The receipts are all there. And in a basement in Hamburg at the European XFL, the world's largest X-ray laser is being aimed at empty space, trying to make the vacuum's rhythm visible one more time, looking for the rotation of X-ray polarization that would prove, again, that the nothingness between atoms and stars is not nothing, that it has always been singing, that the universe's heartbeat is real, is quantum, is hidden in every shadow and every silence, and has been there since before the first particle of matter existed. It has never stopped.